because sometimes there's a lot of shame associated with infidelity or things that happen in your marriage. You feel shamed or you feel guilty. Maybe you're the person that did it and you feel guilty. And if you are the person that was offended, I remember having to be intimate with my husband, but hurting inside and having all these thoughts. But by faith, I did it because I loved him. And the more I did it by faith, the thoughts began to move. And God.
Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship
from surviving to thriving.
If this is your first time joining us, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. Today on TMC, we have Maurice and Kim Johnson with Marriage Takes 3.
We've been married 23 years. October will make 24. We just love all things marriage, all things love. And so God has blessed us we started a ministry called Marriage Takes 3. And it's about husband and wife and God keeping it together.
So Kim, Maurice, tell us a little bit about how you guys met.
We met at Walmart. We both were working there. We became very good friends, and we just started talking to each other. We have conversation with each other for like hours at a time, and so it just grew from there. We were friends first before we became lovers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we met each other at very stormy times in our life. Like we were experiencing a lot individually, and we connected as friends, just kind of trying to help each other get through tough times. When we initially came together and got married, he had 2 children, I had 2 children, and we made one. And they were all stair steps. We had an older son that was maybe 6 years older than the rest of them. But they were all our children. We never used words like step and anything like that.
Yeah.
When we got the children together, we raised them as one. And it was a lot of compromising in that it wasn't just their children. We had to work with their parents as well. So we took the high road, just showing love, never saying any negativity. And when we were with them, when we had them all together, we just loved them like we were one big family. But yes, it's always challenging because you have children that live outside of the home as well.
Right.
But we just lived the standard of love. And regardless of what anyone else was doing, we chose love. And that's what helped us through those tough times.
Yes. Both of us just came out of other marriages.
Wow.
So we both had been married before. I was married for a year and a half. My wife was married for 7 years. And so here it is. We both came out of marriages damaged. And here you got 2 damaged people trying to get married.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just trying to do it the best way we knew how.
Yeah.
And so once we had the encounter with God, we found out it was a better way to do a marriage.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that, you're 2 people that come together, but you don't realize that the other person has a past. So what we try to counsel when we're coaching or counseling couples that are considering marriage is ask the right questions.
Yeah.
What did they see growing up? How do they see parenting? Because all of these things make up who this person is. You don't just get the person they present, but you get all their experiences, family, you get everything. And so when you get together, you're in love, and then all of a sudden all this stuff starts showing up. You're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up.
Right.
Absolutely. You talked about asking the right questions. Kim, what are some of the things that you would say are the foundations using those 2 things that you guys talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. First, you just have to know who you are and what you want and where you're going, right? And so and we're just saying this because, we are believers. So I have to understand, okay, what is the plan for my life? What's God's plan for my life? So then when I encounter someone, I'm not going to just jump onto their plan. It has to line up with the plan for my life.
Yes.
Come on.
Because you hear people use the scripture, well, he that findeth the wife findeth the good. Well, that's right. But if he find me, it should line up with what God has already said for me.
Absolutely.
Right. And so if many times people don't know who they are, so they'll sign up for anything or they'll take on anything that may be totally not for you or who you are. So I think it's just so important to ask those questions, you know, what are your intentions? Even in dating, we have a lot of young people or people, period, that are just dating because they're alone. There's no intentions of dating, of marrying.
Right.
They just want to date. But if you have a desire to be married, then you have to be upfront with that to say, hey, I'm not just dating to date. You know, what are your intentions with me? Do you want to be married? Because there are many people that don't even value marriage now. It's like, why get married?
And my wife just made that a great point, because we have to look at, are we looking for, as husbands, are we looking for a tool or a toy?
Come on.
And so the wife is a tool, not a toy, because she's equipped to be my wife. She's equipped. She's equipped to be that help me, that tool, that whatever I need to do, she's able to help me get the job done. And so that's why it had to be a tool and not a toy, because with toys, you just play around with it. You know, what the Bible said, when, you know, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became a man, I put away those childish things. And so now we as men, we have to put away those childish things and seek for a wife, because the Bible does say, he that findeth a wife, not a toy or a girlfriend, but you have to look for a wife. You know, and so those are the things that we really, really teach. Look for a wife, not just a date or a girlfriend, but you're looking for a wife.
And I want you guys to speak on this, because there's a point when in the relationship where you know if they're playing games or if they're for real. And sometimes I think we can kind of, for the sake of not being alone, or, you know, sticking with everybody else, you know, she's getting married, so I need to find somebody to get married real quick, and things like that. And we kind of put ourselves in the situation to be the toys, you know. So I kind of want to deal with that real quick, because we can get frustrated with the game aspect of it. But in the beginning, we tolerated the aspect of being a toy, and now something different.
Yeah, I think everybody puts on their best face when you meet someone. So you show them all the great things about you or whatever. But that's why we have to be intentional, even in those encounters. It doesn't mean I'm ready to get married today. But it means that my desire is eventually to be married. So as you encounter me, that's what I'm asking those questions. And a lot of times you can tell when a person is rejecting you, really trying to get to know them. They want to stay on the surface and they don't want to answer those questions because they're not really trying to go there. But something that you said, Cedric, that was so good. But a lot of times people are desperate. They don't want to be alone. You know, this person may seem like they have money or it's like looking for someone to provide something that you don't have. That's not what marriage is about.
Just to add on to it, a lot of times we wear the mask. You know, you wear the mask because the only thing you show the person is what you want them to see. You don't show them the truth. So after you get married, now you take the mask off. Now I'm like, oh my God, you know, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
We have to go into that relationship without the mask on, you know, and with the right heart.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man, it's so many ways we could go with this, because
I'm like, okay, wow. But I want to talk about the mask. Maurice, you just mentioned the mask, so let's talk about that a little bit, because you guys coach, you guys counsel. What would you tell someone? What would you say to someone who says, I married a person who was wearing a mask, and now I feel like I'm stuck. You know, this is not fulfilling. I don't know what I got myself into, but we're already married. What would your piece of advice be to that person?
You know, when we marry someone, everybody has something that they have not shared as they work through things. The first thing is, you know, communication. Talk about it. I say pray, you know. We know everybody is not a believer, but praying and asking God to give you direction on how to talk to them. Communication is everything. So the right questions, because if a person is wearing a mask, it's related to something. You're hiding something. Maybe there was a trauma, especially with men. A lot of men don't talk about things like that just because they were taught to move on, and they really haven't moved on. Women too. So being in a marriage is being committed
to stick and stay, to work through it, you know, unless it's abusive. Of course, we don't want to stay in anything abusive. So the thing is to ask the right questions and try to work through it. If not, you may need counseling, a mediator that can help to pull and work through. And there's nothing wrong with counseling. It's not about somebody getting in your business. If you care enough about your marriage, you'll do whatever it takes to work through those issues. So that's what I would say.
And just to add on what my wife said, just that last part, you want somebody in your business if you want your marriage to work out and want your marriage to last. You know, we've been through that phase where we had to get somebody into our business to help our marriage work out and help our marriage to last. You know, and so when you find somebody that does have some mask on, you do go to somebody and say, hey, I need some help. You know, I need this 911 call right now. You know, because if you stuck and you really are committed, because we have to see or we can sit and commit and stick and stay. And, you know, and that's what we want to do. We want to see marriages sit and commit and stick and stay. You know, and like my wife, unless it's an abusive marriage, we don't, you know, go with that. But we want to speak life into those marriages.
Wow. That's good. It's something else. One of the things I see happen as believers, this is with males and females, maybe, you know, dealing with sex or something like that. And it's like we jump into something, but we jumped into it for the wrong reason because, you know, we love God. We don't want to sin against God. And we move prematurely and just jump into a relationship without even knowing the individual.
I think that, well, I know that when we talk about loneliness, especially like you say, because look, if we look at TV, social media, there's so many pornographic images, there's things out here that will try to draw you into that temptation of, you know, and listen, we still live in this earth suit, okay? We have desires, we're, you know, and so I believe that God didn't create us to be alone anyway, but there's certain people that for whatever reason, maybe they saw a bad marriage growing up or whatever, they're reluctant to commit. But I think when we talk about going into just jumping in to get married to satisfy that, I think it goes back to our relationship with God, getting rooted in a place where you can grow spiritually, because the closer you get to him and starting to know yourself and, you know, reading the word, getting around like-minded believers, because a lot of times singles do feel like they might as well get married because they don't want to be alone, because a lot of times married people don't embrace the singles. So they're just kind of like, and then they're told, well, you know, just wait till you get married, but they see us married, they see us experiencing it. And so I think that what it's really about as a believer, getting around other people, like-minded people, where you can pray, you can read your word together and find ways to be fulfilled as a person. There's many things that we can do within ourselves to fulfill what God has for you to do, instead of rushing into a marriage that in the end may not work because you went ahead of God. So
that's good.
So let me ask you this. What do you say a key component to your thriving marriage?
I would say the key component for our thriving marriage is communication. When I say communication, healthy communication, healthy conflict. You know, people think confrontation is always bad. It's not. Healthy confrontation is good. You know, I had to learn that. You know, my wife always used to say, let's talk about it. I was the one who was like, hey, just let it go. You know, it'd be okay and work itself out. But I found out it's okay for us to have confrontation. It's, you know, it's healthy. You know, also keeping God the center of your marriage. And what I mean, the center of your marriage, and this is the way I picture it, this is the way God gave it to me. If I allow God to be the center, so when I look this way, I see a God-fearing woman. And when she looked this way, she see a God man. So that's why God had to be the center of the marriage, and he had to be the head because he's the designer and he's the author of the marriage. So he knows best what we need.
I like that. That's good. Do you mind sharing? Let's share a challenge or something that you all experienced, if you don't mind, and how you guys navigated through it, and also speak to someone who's listening how it could be beneficial to them.
Definitely. And this is our testimony that we share because we know a lot of people think that infidelity is a deal breaker. And, we don't judge that. But I will tell you that it's not a deal breaker in every situation.
Yeah.
For us, my husband's prior military. And so we had experienced separation due to the military, him deploying. And we had come into a period where we weren't communicating, weren't talking, weren't in agreement with a lot of things, just a lot going on. And even in our spiritual walk, just not where we need to be praying with each other. So in that distance, infidelity took place. And that was a tough time for us, a very tough time. We were in separation, headed for divorce. The thing that I would say, I know without a shadow of a doubt, is that when you're going through your tests and trials in these type situations, have a safe place to land. Our pastors were that place for us. I remember going to them so broken about my marriage because I know I love my husband. This thing happened, but I went to a safe place. You have to go to a safe place where you can be transparent.
Yes.
And I remember one of the first questions my spiritual father asked me was, what did I want? And I spoke from my heart. I said, I want my marriage. And he said, that's what you'll have. And he began to walk me through, because my husband, we were still separated, how to stand in the gap, how to pray. And then he dealt with my husband separately. And because of having a safe place, people that have wise counsel, you can't talk to everybody about situations in your marriage. You have to go to someone with wise counsel. And by the word, he not only shared the word, but he loved us to a place of coming back together. And my husband can talk more from his place, but I know for a fact that's what caused our marriage to come back together. That's what caused me to be able to release unforgiveness and the hurt of it, because my love for God, God showed me how I learned unforgiveness was he showed me his forgiveness of my sin and forgiveness. And I was able to embrace that and heal through that so I could forgive. And so that's how he did it for me. And my husband can speak a little bit more regarding himself.
Yes, and like my wife said, this is our testimony. We always share with others. The way that God did with me was, like my wife said, was with our spiritual parents. And the one time my pastor, he had called me, and he called me. He said, "Hey, son," he said, "I just called and say I love you." And I really I lost it. He didn't call me and say, why did you do what you did? And try to chastise me or throw the word at me. But he just said, I just called to say I love you.
Amazing.
And once he said that, I went into prayer. God started dealing with my heart. And then I repented to God first. And then I called my wife and asked her to forgive me. And now I said that I never want to do anything to disappoint God. And I never want to do anything to hurt my wife. And so once I came back, I was still in a place where I felt like I was being judged, because that was my internal thing I was dealing with. But I wasn't, it's just my own guilt that I was dealing with. But once God released me from that, me and my wife, we talk about it freely. We share with couples like, hey, I tell God, I committed infidelity. And they were like, you Elder Johnson? I said, no, me Maurice Johnson.
Come on.
It was Maurice Johnson that did it, And so I tell you, so we do share this testimony with others and know that infidelity is not a deal breaker. And once you get past it, it's the past. It has passed by. And so we move past that.
And that was what, 12 years ago?
About 12 years ago.
Yeah.
I really, whatever God put on your heart, there's someone listening right now that their relationship, their marriage is surviving. And you all experience going from surviving to thriving. I want you to speak to that individual that may be going through right now and just encourage them.
And the first thing I would say is that you're not alone. You're not alone. I know that it hurts. Sometimes we can't get beyond the hurt or the betrayal of what happened. And we do have emotions, but they don't have to dictate your life and what happens. I would tell you forgiveness, understanding that God forgave us and that in your situation, but forgiveness is by faith. So if you're waiting to feel like you want to forgive, it'll
Come
never
on.
happen.
Come on.
That's good. That's
It's
good.
by faith, and God commands us to forgive. So
Wow.
and then just be honest with God. God, I'm hurting. God, the more transparent you are, the more he can begin to deal with your heart and
Yeah.
begin to walk it out. But go back to the foundation of why you were married. Go
Yeah.
back to the love. If you can get back to the love and you don't associate an act or an offense with that person, and you can look at your spouse and you can remember the love, the reason you came together, you can use that to as you begin to pull back together. Because remember, a threefold cord is not easily broken. It doesn't mean it won't be broken. It said it's not easily broken. But if you allow God to be that third part of that cord, and you just pull on him, he will link it back together. And so just don't lean on your own understanding. And one of the things that the Lord said to me, so if you're experiencing this, God said he would never make me ashamed, because sometimes there's a lot of shame associated with infidelity or things that happen in your marriage. You feel shamed or you feel guilty. Maybe you're the person that did it and you feel guilty. And if you are the person that was offended, I remember having to be intimate with my husband, but hurting inside and having all these thoughts. But by faith, I did it because I loved him. And the more I did it by faith, the thoughts began to move and God began to honor my obedience to what he says. So it's possible. Don't lose hope.
Amen. Amen. Holding fast to your faith, you can come out on the other side and do what Kim and Maurice is doing today, sharing what you've gone through, not being ashamed, openly being transparent about your challenges, and now helping other marriages go from surviving to thriving.
Yeah. Here's the thing, and I see this happen a lot too, where especially if we heavily involved in ministry, maybe associate pastor or a pastor or whatever the case, whoever it is, we tend to deal with our issues secretly. I mean, it's like we're fooling everybody, and not intentionally. I mean, we know God see it, but it's like we kind of moving in a way as if God don't even see us because, you're hiding for so long. I'm saying this and I thought of, Adam and Eve putting on fig leaves. So walking around with our fig leaves on and I think that's a dangerous thing. And even in a relationship with anything no matter what happens, in the relationship, when we put those fig leaves on, we're not allowing God to use us. We're not allowing ourselves to be healed because we're constantly trying to hide it. And I was just listening to you guys and I was like, wow, I hear this in here. I mean, you guys came to a point. I mean, you guys you didn't keep any secrets. I mean, you didn't hold back. I mean, you shared it and God was able to heal your heart. And a lot of times we talk about the surviving and we talk about the thriving, but it's that thing that in between, the two mountains when you're in the valley, living in the valley, what marriage is like in the valley. There's someone that may be in the valley right now. They're in the valley and they need help. They say, you know what? Maurice, Kim, Cedric, Shante, I hear you guys. I mean, but I need some practical. Give me something practical. What could you share with them as far as some practical steps that you all took?
First, I would say just acknowledge that you need help. Acknowledge where you are. A lot of times there's an elephant in the room. You'll hear about couples that live like they're roommates because they're not confronting the elephant in the room. So it's really acknowledging, hey, we have a problem. Something has happened, whether it's blatantly where everybody knows or it's an offense. And then you have to sit down. I said the first thing is to search your heart, because a lot of times, even in prayer, when we're angry with someone, we want to go to God and tell God about that person. And every time I've done that, God will deal with my heart about me. And I'm like, but I came talking about him. So how are you talking about me now? But God wants to deal with our heart, because the revelation he showed me is that in marriage, we're two lumps of clay that come together and have to be molded. The molding starts when
I
you
love
get
it.
married.
That's it.
Yeah.
You don't come together perfect and boom, we're good. No, that's when the molding starts. So
Yeah.
acknowledge that something is wrong. Pray about it and then come together to talk, not from a place, come together to listen to one
Yes.
another, not listen to defend, but
Mhm.
listen to understand.
Yes.
Listen
That's
to
good.
understand, even though you're hurting, you're offended, but the way you deal with one another is going to make all of the difference.
Come on.
Yeah.
All of the difference. If you're, especially with men, if you don't give them a safe place to be transparent and to talk, they're not. They're not. If they feel attacked, and the same for some women. So first deal with your own soul, your own mind, emotion, and will.
Yeah.
Pray and then go acknowledge, hey, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And then try to talk it out. The next thing is try to conflict resolution between the two of you.
Yeah.
Hear one another out. Listen, write down some of the things and then repeat. Do the so they say something to you, you say, so I understand you're saying this. Try that out. But if it's too tense, you're probably going to need a moderator. Set up for counseling, talk about counseling so you all can work through the issues. If that person's not willing, so at this point, you have to stand in faith. You have to pray. Let God start working on the way it's, because a lot of times if that spouse sees a change in you, they start paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not mad and pouting and saying you ain't getting none tonight or you sleeping on the sofa and all that, but you've changed the way you do things, it causes them to change.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we want to see change in another person first, but we're not willing to make any change.
Yes.
You know, so those are some things that I would say.
And I would just add on to what my wife said. I had to understand why we was down in the valley, that my wife's heart was very tender. So I had to make sure that I dealt with it in a very delicate space.
Yeah.
And so we could be in a good place, you know, and so I had to understand when she was having those moments where I was going, you know, those thoughts. I didn't want to hide anything from my wife. You know, I didn't try to hide my cell phone. She had my passwords and all that. So those some of the steps I made to ensure her there's nothing going on. You know, had to protect my ear gates and eye gates.
Yes.
So when there's a sexual scene comes on, guess what we do? We don't even watch it.
Yeah.
You know, we both start engaging to each other and looking at each other until the scene is going off. And so we have to protect our ear gates and our eye gate. See, some people sit there and say, well, I'm strong enough just to watch it, you know. Nah, we don't even play those games. So we're not even gonna play with the enemy about watching it. And so we'll fast forward, or if you know it's gonna be short, we just okay, and we love on each other.
Yeah.
You know, and so those are some of the steps that we took while we was down in the valley. Now, since we took that, we continue to practice those same values, you know, and don't forget, because we're gonna need them, you know. And always remember that we're friends. My wife is my best friend. You know, we know that we're the best friends. So always when we go back, you know, we always call it ground zero.
Ground zero, yeah.
You know, when we had those moments, we call it heated moments of passion.
Yeah.
You know, you know,
intense fellowship.
Intense fellowship.
Yes.
You know, we always go back to ground zero. Remember, we was friends first. You know, we don't play the sleeping on the couch. I never slept on the couch. I don't, you know, that's just me. You know, but we always remember that God put us together, so we're gonna sleep together. You know, and so those are some of the steps that we took. Allow God to be first in your marriage, to be the center of your marriage. I can't express that enough. Allow God to be the center of your marriage, because when He's the center, He's the one that continue to heal. He's the one that can continue to prosper your marriage, you know, and take it to the next dimension. And also remember that He's the designer of the marriage. So when you have an issue, you always go to the designer, the manufacturer. You know, so always go back to the manufacturer, which is God, you know, and pray about yourself. Show me. Search my heart, God. Search my heart. And so when you start with yourself, also the last thing, be a student of your spouse. Be a student. I'm always studying my wife. I don't, you know, I haven't graduated. and I don't want to graduate. But I always want to continue to stay a student,
right.
Yes.
know my way, know more about her, continue to watch her, what she like, what she don't like, so always be a student of your spouse.
I think the biggest thing to remember is that it's not 50-50, as we've heard. That's not correct. It's 100-100. We have to bring 100% of what we have in. And so if one person comes up short, it doesn't matter. We make together, we're one. And so it's just about, if you would just give 100% of yourself, regardless of how hurt you've been in the past, if people have left you, whatever, God is requiring 100%, because your commitment is not just to your mate, but it's also to God. So we make it to God first and then to our mate. So that's what it's a covenant. It's not a contract, right? So there's no plan B. There's no, if he do this, I'm out. But go into it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Maurice and Kim. And as we prepare to go, tell us, how could the TMC listeners or anyone that hears this podcast connect with you all and It Takes Three?
So it's Marriage Takes Three. We're on Clubhouse, the Marriage Takes Three room. Also, we host every Saturday evening at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also host every Sunday. It's called the Pure Partners Virtual Ministry. It's by Zoom meeting. And you can find us on Facebook, Pure Partners. And it's just an encouraging, motivational evening with us. It's 1 hour. We have different speakers that speak on everything, spirit, soul, body, just that encouragement we need going into the week. And then I do on Clubhouse Wisdom for the Way, or Women of the Word and Faith, which is just for women, to encourage women.
And for me personally, I do called Men Check on Clubhouse every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time. Also, you can reach us on Instagram as well, Pure Partners for You. So you can reach us by Instagram as well. My Clubhouse name is Coach MJ.
Okay.
And I'm Elder Kim. And so our rooms are Marriage Takes Three, the Women of the Word and Faith, and then Men Check. But it's just about taking that Marriage Takes Three principle into the coaching with the couples.
Amazing.
And then for me, Wisdom for the Way is really about helping women understand who they are in God, so they can move from the pain of the past, so they can take back their power. And that's what I do for the women.
And for me with the men, it's just for me to make sure that men be edified, recharged, and build up men that take their rightful place. Men stand up and be the men of God that they are called to be, that they be kingdom ambassadors, kingdom citizens, know that they are kings.
Yes.
And so that's what we teach them about what they are and who they are, and show them that, God had already given them their identity, but we are here to groom them and cause them to thrive in that.
Yes.
Wow. This is amazing. Maurice, Kim, thank you all so very much for the knowledge and the information that you share with the TMC community on today. On behalf of the TMC community, we want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having us.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
So we want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, go ahead and head down in the comments and leave us a comment. Tell us what stood out most to you in this episode, or what you found most helpful. And go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and review. That helps us get the word out. We also want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders all around the world every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.